Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of VGU Talks. I'm Don the Expert Coles from VideoGamesUncovered.com, and let's get deep with some Bloodborne. Oh yeah, if you know me, I'm already hyped for this game, and recently there has been released a 6-minute gameplay demo. I know, 6 full minutes. Nothing like The Witcher 3's 34-minute gameplay, but 6 minutes is still better than nothing. By all means. And this is technically the first proper gameplay we're able to see with the UI, with animations, with proper fighting mechanics and stuff. And so I thought I would go over it for you and have a look at what I picked out from the gameplay and some things that other people may have missed out on. So, let's get deep. You'll notice when the gameplay starts off, you start off at a place known as Yharnam, which looks incredible. It's this town which is kind of reminiscent of kind of like the Jack the Ripper age in London. It has that really strange or dark feel to it, and very Victorian-esque. I love the look of this area. I'm guessing this is just the name of this main town area, and then there's a castle in the distance, and I'm guessing that's going to be named something else. This already looks great. Hands down, good start. But now let's take our attention to the top left hand corner of the screen before we get deep into the gameplay. The top left hand corner of the screen is where all the UI is happening this time. Nothing seems to be on the bottom left hand. And if you are used to your Souls games in general, you would know that in the bottom left hand corner of your screen you would have your healing items, your consumable items, your right hand and left hand weapons. This time it doesn't seem that way. We didn't see anything involving weapon UI, but I'm guessing they're keeping that until later or until full game release, which, okay, that's fine. You want to keep us waiting. But the UI they did show off a few things. First off, health and stamina are back. Obvious. Red and green bars, one above the other. We're used to it. That's fine. There's nothing new. But then we have bullets and consumable items in the top left, both in their separate slots. This must mean that you must get a different array of different kinds of bullets that might do more damage to certain enemies, or might be better with staggering enemies, or something along those lines. And as well as that, you got your consumable items there. But the only consumable items that we saw being used in the gameplay were Molotov cocktails and pebbles, and we'll get to those in just a second. The other thing in the UI, which was incredibly interesting, was this strange number in the top left. Now, if you're used to more, let's say, Dark Souls 2, in Dark Souls 1, the top left-hand corner was your humanity number, and that would tell you how much humanity you had, and the more humanity you had, the better drops you could get, but the more likely you were to be invaded if you were human. Whilst in the top left-hand corner for Dark Souls 2, it showed what cult you were a part of, whether it was good, bad, PvE, PvP related, just make the game harder, or anything along those lines. In this case, at the very beginning, I was very much like, what is that strange number? And then you see throughout the gameplay, and I'm guessing this gameplay just takes place in this big area, because the area is pretty freaking big, and it changes from high numbers to low numbers to average numbers, and it gets you thinking, what is this? Well, later on, you actually find out that that indicates your health item. That is the main health consumable of the game. No more Estus Flask. By the looks of things, no more life gem or anything like that. That is your health gain. By the looks of things, they're going back to the original Dark Souls way of doing things, where when you consume the health item, you consume it and it just restores a block of your health. Just a solid block. Which is okay. It's fine. Because the game's actually not based around using that consumable item to regenerate your health a lot anymore, and I'll get into that in just a mo. Now, back to what I was saying about consumable items. You see a little bit into the gameplay that the first item we ever pick up from someone is a Molotov cocktail, and these Molotov cocktails act like the fire bombs or black fire bombs in the Dark Souls games, and they look just pretty sweet. The fact that we're now using Molotov cocktails instead of fire bombs, yes, I'm liking this. Move along. The other interesting thing that you may be able to point out is you see the bullets are pretty darn plentiful. You're seeing the character that is being played in the game picks up a lot of bullets off of dead enemies, even picks up bullets off of random drops on the ground as you're walking along. It looks like these bullets are very plentiful, But the bullets being plentiful does also back up the idea that the guns don't actually seem that powerful. The guns seem more inclined towards staggering opponents in mid-attack or mid-animation to stop them solid, or just to simply grab the enemy's attention if they have their back to you and it's just you versus them. I don't think it's going to be a killing weapon unless you put stats into it, if there is going to be the level up system with statistics being put in there to boost up your effectiveness with guns. I'm guessing that's what could happen. But in this gameplay, we saw more damage being dealt with the melee weapons rather than the ranged weapons. Could just be for the demo, and the character could just be built for melee, which is fine. But if we can like do a hybrid of melee and gunplay, or just go full on guns and have your guns the main source of damage that you are probably going to get, that's something that would be very interesting to know. Now, the second consumable item that we see in the game are pebbles. And I first thought to myself, a pebble? What are you going to bloody use a pebble for? And then he used it. He used it in a very good way. There was a group of enemies just walking along this street, and he used the pebble, and he threw the pebble at one enemy. It did like 2 damage, so it's negligible damage. But only that enemy was aggroed. And that seems like a really good idea for big group encounters, especially if they have their backs to you or they just don't know you're there yet. Pebbles can probably be used in order to get the attention of one enemy or a couple of enemies that seem weaker than others, so that you can take them out of the equation first, or work your way up, taking out the enemies one by one instead of aggroing everyone and being swarmed. And that seems like a really solid idea for an item, so I'm really looking forward to using that. And now one of the big changes. In the gameplay, you'll obviously see a lot of melee fighting. And in the melee fighting, you'll see with certain attacks, you'll see big amounts of blood just just come off of the opponent that's being attacked. And when you see these big splurges of blood coming off of your opponent, you actually see a chunk of your health bar coming back, whether it be small or big. And this is actually bringing to light a brand new mechanic being put into Bloodborne in comparison to the other games, being that well-timed attacks and well-timed counter hits will be rewarded with health gain. And I think this is why consumables aren't going to be that important anymore, and they're given their own slot rather than being forced into consumable inventory, which actually kind of makes sense, because now you're being rewarded for going deeper into risk. So if you want to do that counter hit on an opponent and potentially stagger them and get your wad of your health back, you'll be rewarded for doing that counter hit perfectly. And you know what? That's going to cater to certain playstyles. I like it. I think it's a good mini mechanic. By the looks of things, the health you gain is dependent on the damage you take from the enemy you're facing, which seems incredibly interesting, because by the looks of things, you're not going to be able to regain all your health off of the enemy you fight if the enemy damages you. Could be wrong, but that's what I saw in the gameplay. Okay, so let's talk about the 2 weapons that we saw in the game as well. The saw cleaver and the axe. Well, first off, the saw cleaver, because that's the first weapon we see. And this saw cleaver is literally like you have a handle going over, and when you hold it like that, it's kind of like think of it as a giant pair of brass knuckles that just goes around your knuckles like that, and you're using it as a slashing weapon, or you can just punch someone and it does impact damage or something along those lines. However, then you can just transform it on the fly in your attacks, turning it into a blade, into the machete form, as I like to call it, because it looks like a friggin' machete. I know it's a cleaver, but turns it into cleaver form, big blade, and then you now have range, and you can keep them at bay, and you can work your way back, and you can seamlessly transition between the blade form and the saw form, which is really cool. When you look at the animations on there, it doesn't stop combos, but looks at things you can just do it mid-combo and keep your combo going. That seems awesome. But that's one weapon. The axe looks insane. So you have the hand axe, which just works as a normal hand axe. You're just slicing and dicing as you go on through. But then on the fly, all of a sudden you go from wielding a hand axe in one hand to now equipping the handle in 2 hands, and the hand axe turns into a long axe. So you have even more range, and it works kind of like a halberd's main blade from Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2, where you now have to strike it down properly and you can swing it. It looks really good. That mini mechanic with having these different weapons for switch from one function to another look insanely good. If you didn't see the trailer from Gamescom, you may not have noticed that a 3rd weapon was revealed, and that weapon was the spear scythe, which looks pretty friggin' crazy, because I love using spears in the Souls games, and I'm planning on using a spear again when it comes across and when the time comes. But the fact that the spear can also turn into a scythe, sign me up. Sign me straight up. I'm looking forward to using those weapons so much. Now, another interesting thing this time round is that you'll see that another item is picked up later on in the gameplay, and they're called blood vials. Now, I'm not sure whether these blood vials are actually your health items, but by the looks of things they may be. So, by the looks of things, these blood vials might actually be the humanity or the life gem of Bloodborne, which seems pretty freaking cool, and by the looks of things, you don't want to use them all. You want to keep them in reserve. A new thing I also noticed when it came to the melee combat, you'll see that during melee combat they charge up their attacks, and then you see like a glimmer of light come off of their weapon as they're in mid-charge, and I'm guessing that means that if you time it right and if you let go of your charge attack at the right time, you're going to be able to do bonus damage or just go into a proper charge attack animation. Because you did it with the cleaver, and the cleaver just did a really heavy hit on an opponent. You see it also being done with the long axe with the two hands, where you just kept it back on you, you charged it, and then you did two huge swings with it that did immense damage. And by the looks of things could do a lot of AoE control as well if you're swarmed by opponents, which looks like a very good idea. If this charge attack mechanic is a thing, it's going to be different, and I think I'm going to really like it. If you time it right, you're going to get the good payoffs. And I'm seeing a lot of risk equal reward strategies in Bloodborne already, which looks pretty freaking great. Now the next interesting thing is happening, where you're on a bridge of some kind, you're fighting off some werewolf guys, and then all of a sudden this second player comes in. But it looks like a second player could be an NPC, because this player is huge! This character is much bigger than you are, but he uses the same kind of weapons as you do. He has a gun, he had the sword cleaver in his hand as well, and he had a revolver, which looked pretty friggin' great. It looked like a friggin' gigantic obsessed magnum that you just punch into someone's face. That looks cool. And he just came in out of nowhere, starts attacking, starts taking aggro. He doesn't look like a spirit or a ghost in any way whatsoever. He just looks like any normal guy. So that looks cool. So it could either mean drop in, drop out, co-op play with random players on the fly. Could even potentially mean that you could just invite your friend whilst you're in mid-game and just say, hey, do you want to help me out fight these werewolves? It looks really interesting. And it looks cool. You don't see him ever again past that point, but who cares? It looks great. You could have been on 2 separate missions that involves going down the same bridge. Who knows? But drop in, drop out co-op, potentially linked to PvP as well. Looks cool. And so the last few things I really want to bring up are the enemies. The enemy designs in this look great. From different humanoid guys that are using like rakes and just general like equipment that you would think a regular guy would have in their garden or something, or within their house, which looks pretty freaking cool. And they look all bone, like they're tall and all like mutated in some way, very thin boned, and they're all scraggly. Well, some of them are. And then you got these other guys which are really big, but they're cloaked over, and they've got gigantic, over-exaggerated axes. The designs in general look great, and one of the awesome things is, at the end of the gameplay, you see a boss fight! Yay! We love seeing boss fights prematurely, and this boss fight actually featured the cleric beast, it is being called. Could be linked to a character in the game maybe. Very interesting. The cleric beast looked incredibly awesome, with these like tentacled arms and like mane. There's like half demonized goat with like a furry ass mane which had individual bits moving. Kind of reminds me of Gravelord Nito from the original Dark Souls, with all the individual bits on him and all the different skeletons that formed his body. That was pretty cool. The fight itself was pretty awesome. The character just got covered in blood. He went in with like the nice grey Jack the Ripper looking outfit, and he came out with just blood everywhere. Wow, just soaked in it. and it looked really cool. And by the looks of things, you can do unique counter-attack animations onto bosses, and you can also stagger bosses again using your guns or using well-timed melee attacks. It looks really cool, and I can't commend it enough. Bloodborne is looking that much better each time I see more stuff about it, whether it's video content or whether it's just updates on how the game is going to play. Bloodborne could potentially be the best PS4 exclusive coming out next year, because it is going to be coming out next year, as we now know. But I want to know, guys, I've had a look at the gameplay and that's what I was able to suss out. But what were you able to suss out? Did you see anything that I didn't see? Did you notice anything I didn't notice? Or are you just not interested in Bloodborne? Let me know. The comments are down below, you know what to do in them. And I'll see you next time for another edition of VGU Talks. See you then, Blood fans.